It's been 3 years since Paralympic fever swept through Great Britain. The Games highlighted what people with disabilities can achieve. Taking part in regular sporting activity can have a profound effect on people with disabilities' lives at whatever level they compete. In this film, we will hear from Paralympic athletes.
After I lost it, the first couple of weeks I thought my life was over. I didn't know what was out there. But finding sports really put a positive spin on the way I think, on the way I look at life.
British record holders.
Sport definitely has changed my life. I don't know what I'd be doing if I wasn't doing athletics now. And it's just given me so many opportunities.
And rising stars.
Well, it's a sport that sort of makes you feel normal.
As we hear how sport benefits people with disabilities, it can be more than a game. Taking part in sport benefits everybody physically, but can the effects for people with disabilities go further? Emma Spring works at the English Federation of Disability Sport, whose aim is to get people active for life.
So people, by taking part in sport, feel part of something and have that community and friendship and the benefits that come with that. And it's not that the benefits are different for disabled people, it's just sometimes in their everyday life they can have more limitations, and by taking part in sport it can help them realise they can do more with their life.
Somebody that knows firsthand the transforming effect that sport can have on people is former world champion and double Paralympian Nathan Stevens.
On my 9th birthday, kind of a stupid child, well, adventurous child, let's say, we went down to our local hangout, say me, my brother, my cousin and a couple of friends, say local pond where we always used to go fishing, climbing trees, little cycle path, but there was an open railway line that ran alongside it. And we always used to go up and sit down and watch the trains go by. But for some reason this day, a slow freight train was going past. This year it was only going walking pace, it was pulling in to let an intercity past. And I stupidly tried jumping on one of the ladders on one of the trailers, and my legs slipped underneath it and took my legs off. So I didn't know what had happened until I woke up in a bush. So luckily my friend dragged me off the track. My brother and cousin ran off to get help, sat up and then seen my leg in front of me. Turned to my friend and just kind of went, am I going to be all right? And he said, you're talking, you're going to be fine. I was very much into my rugby and football. I always used to follow my brother around, doing everything that he did. The fear hit me then was, well, I'm not going to be normal anymore. I'm not going to be able to do the things that I used to do. That thought kind of stuck with me for the first couple of weeks while I was in intensive care. And then my stubbornness kind of took over, and he thought, you know what, I'm kind of fed up of lying in this bed right now.
After recovering from his injuries, Nathan tried his hand at any sport that he could, including ice sledge hockey, cricket, horse riding and swimming. He feels that he owes a lot to sport.
I wouldn't be who I am today. I wouldn't have met the people who I've met. I wouldn't have been married to my wife if it wasn't for sport. And I would never have been able to call myself a double Paralympian, world record holder and world champion.
Another Welshman who has benefited hugely from sport is student Morgan Jones, who was born without his left arm. He feels that sport has changed his own attitude.
Yeah, there definitely was a change in how I thought about myself. I did see myself as disabled, so in some things I thought I couldn't do them. But then, having done so much athletics, it's like, well, there's always a way of finding out how to do things. It can always be done.
It gives you that sense of inclusion, that sense of accomplishment. It's being around people with similar disabilities to yourself, or just any disability, and learning from their experiences and from them learning from yours. It's just general day-to-day life skills that you can kind of help each other with. You know, I've had so many people ask me, how do I carry teas and coffees on crutches? When you are actually suffered from not being able to do something, and then actually you get given this freedom to go out and expand and try new things, your confidence just goes through the roof.
Despite the obvious benefits of being involved in sport, a recent Sport England survey revealed that more than 120,000 people with disabilities have given up taking part in sport in the last year. Also, a smaller percentage of people with disabilities take part in sport. So what barriers are people facing?
We carried out some research with disabled people, and we found that the barriers that they face fall into 3 categories, which is physical, logistical and psychological, with psychological being the most prolific amongst them and the strongest. So it's their perceptions and other people's perceptions of what they can achieve within sport.
I suppose the main obstacle is not actually knowing the opportunities that are there, because it took me years to actually find out that there was these disability athletics opportunities, because I just had no idea. So I guess that would be the same for a lot of people.
To help encourage participation, the Federation launched the Charter for Change in February 2015.
So we have 3 asks from people. It's about asking providers to enable disabled people to participate in sport. It's about ensuring that disabled people can be active for life at the level that they want to be, and about improving communication so that there's a positive image of disabled people in sport out there on a national level.
Morgan trains at the National Indoor Athletics Centre in Cardiff with a group of athletes without disabilities.
Yeah, so the guys I train with don't have disabilities, but they kind of view me as the same. But perhaps to start with they didn't. They were like, oh, who's this guy? It's kind of a learning process for everyone to kind of work out, like, you know, how I can do things. But now that I've got everything that I can do everything they do. So it's equal now.
Morgan enjoys training 6 times a week, but it took time for people to understand his disability.
A lot of people just don't understand anything about the disability sport. They don't recognise that you might have some needs, but then you don't have other needs as well, because sometimes people like smother you with attention that you just don't want or need.
An event which changed opinions about disability sport was the 2012 Paralympic Games. Nathan competed in Beijing 4 years earlier, as well as at the London Games, and acknowledges their importance.
Britain have adopted Paralympic sports more than any country I know of. They see Paralympic sport as just sport, and since London 2012 it's grown so much. I think Channel 4 give it justice by calling us superhumans, even though we're not. We're just people getting on with our lives, wanting to achieve just as well as anybody else. And since London, people have started to realise that and want to watch Paralympic sport and want to know where their nearest club is.
After the Games, the Federation carried out their own legacy survey, which showed that 8 in 10 people with disabilities considered taking part in more sport. But the effects went further.
In terms of the actual statistics, I think it was 6 in 10 non-disabled people said that their impressions had improved of what disabled people could achieve. Although if you ask disabled people themselves, only 4 in 10 of them said the same thing. Maybe that's because they already know what they can achieve and they're restricted from what society enables them to be able to do.
And for up-and-coming athletes like Morgan, the Games had a monumental effect.
For me, the Paralympics were motivational to see. It was really cool seeing my mates, there doing their thing. Makes you want to get there. And then for other people, I suppose it was a big wake-up call to see that these disabled athletes that are doing such hard work to compete and win medals, that it deserved the same recognition as any other sport.
However, you don't have to take part in elite sport to feel the benefits. Participating in sport at the grassroots level can also revolutionise people's lives. Often, it is the taking part that counts.
Everybody isn't necessarily aiming to be an elite sports person. Most people haven't got the ability to do that. Grassroots is vital that people have a chance to try things out, to see what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy.
After the 2012 Olympic and Paralympic Games, the Sport of 8 funding initiative was established with the aim of getting people who would not usually take part in sport active. Currently, the charity Greater Sport is funding 8 projects in Bolton with the aim of reaching 170 people. One of those clubs is the North West Warriors Martial Arts Club.
Excellent, well done, good work.
Jamie Agar is a Disability Sport Development Officer in Bolton who has worked with a number of clubs to secure funding. He also runs an adapted cycling session for people with disabilities called Wheels for All, which has benefited from Sport of 8 funding in the past.
We have a mix of bikes. We have hand bikes, twin bikes, tricycles, 2-wheel bikes, wheelchair bikes. When they come to a session like this, it's quite sociable, it's fun, it's friendly, people feel welcomed, and then people can progress from this kind of level to go on to compete if they really want to.
A member of the club who has benefited hugely from sport is Kaylee English. Kaylee enjoyed dancing before losing the use of her right leg after falling ill with meningitis.
Impacted quite a lot because she went from being able to sort of, like everybody, just get up off a chair and walk about. And although now 2 years on, she can get up and down the stairs by herself, either on her hands and knees, going upstairs and coming downstairs. She sits down to come down the stairs. But it's still a big difference in life to being able to run about on your own 2 legs.
Once she was at the session, I kind of looked, what Kaylee was able to do, and we kind of adapted bikes for her to use. She's now trying out the racing wheelchairs that we've got through the athletics club that train at Leverhulme. She wants to go on to compete in that. So for Kaylee, it's really, really benefited her.
When I first came, my leg was bent up, and now it's sort of, I can move, my knee will move and stuff. It changed how much I could go out with my friends and where I could go to.
Competing on her running bike, in 2014, Kaylee became the first person with disabilities to take part in the Iron Kids event. She finished 9th in her category.
Jamie asked me if I wanted to do Iron Kids, and I said that I'd give it a go, give it a go. I got a recognition award from Iron Kids for being the first person to ever run Iron Kids with a running bike.
Just to see her actually in an event with able-bodied people doing something that was as normal, just running in a running race, it was, you know, something we didn't really expect to ever see her do it again, or at least not for quite a long time. Sorry.
If Kaylee continues to improve in her chair racing, who is to say that she will not one day become world champion? It's a day that Nathan remembers well.
When I first started athletics, my coach turned around to my mum and dad and said, in 10 years' time, your son's going to be a world champion. At the time, I was 13, 14 years old, and I'm thinking, well, how can he think that far ahead? You know, I'm used to thinking week by week. So when I was sat there out in New Zealand and I'd won the world championships, it kind of put it all into perspective that actually the 10 years that I've been working my absolute butt off, this has come down to this one moment, and I actually did what I had to do. When you got that medal around your neck, it's kind of everything that I've just done, it's been worth it. Floods of emotion, tears, I seen my mum crying, so I started crying, tried to scream, and it just kind of all came out. But yeah, it was an amazing feeling, and I just want that now in the middle of a Paralympic stadium.
Sport. It brings people together, builds confidence, and can change lives at whatever level you compete. Sport is more than a game.